All right, thank you. Thank you, Missy. Great to be here. Great to join everyone here today. My name is Chris Badurek. I'm a professor of geography at SUNY Cortland. And this work is some work that I've been doing with my undergraduate research assistants, Shelby, Soule, and Connor Brierton, who both recently graduated. And so I'll talk a little bit about their work and what we're trying to accomplish here. So next slide, please. Okay, so there's two projects that I wanted to talk about, one from Shelby and one from Connor. And the first one is, it's about invasive plants in the Finger Lakes National Forest. Now, I wanted to go back to what Missy was saying at the start of our session and sort of reinforce the point that even though I'm talking about terrestrial ecology here, a lot of invasives across the Finger Lakes and other aquatic settings have significant problems with invasive plants, right? So there's hydrilla, starry stonewort, water chestnut, milfoil, and I've done some work with purple loosestrife, right? So all those invasives are obviously aquatic, but the same methods and the same type of technologies can be applied to deal with those particular types of plants, right? So the first project here is part of a collaboration that I've had with New York State. They're called prisms, and basically what this is that there's a regional separation of the state into different units that deal with invasive plants. So there's the one that I worked with is in the Finger Lakes area. Cortland is in central New York, and this is near the workplace here is between Seneca and Cayuga Lake in near Ithaca. And what we had done here, there's a Finger Lakes National Forest is obviously a public land, and it has a significant invasive plant problem. And so what had happened is that we had collected field-based data, observations of invasive plants. And as you can see in this graph, there's sort of like a line there. And as part of that project, we were thinking that in an ideal world, we would be able to portray this information to the public so that people who are hiking through this national forest or camping, because camping is allowed there, the public and other environmental organizations that might want to participate, they would benefit from having an ability to see all this directly in a web-based interface, right? So we'll take a look at the next slide here. So what we decided to do with this project is to basically create a dashboard. So perhaps many of you have seen the COVID dashboards that every county has. They're sort of like interactive live update feeds of maps and other forms of graphs and other informational items. And what we wanted to do was to put this in an easy to use format for collaborators and the people that we worked with the Prism to see all this data through this interface. And so what was created here that Shelby had worked on was to make this interactive web-based dashboard so that it portrays all of the invasive plants. You can see it. It can be set up as a real-time updates, for example, with these graphs. And you can see the list of species, the total number of species, and there's information that she had created about each of the species themselves. So when we talk about citizen scientists or the public that can report invasive plants, oftentimes there's a real issue with the ability to correctly identify them, right? So most of the interfaces that we've created are meant to not only enable people to see the data, but also to upload the data as they collect it, but also to inform them about, what's the pieces of information that you can use to make sure that the plants that you're identifying are what we're looking for. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, so once the data has been put in there, that's raw data that's been collected. It was collected with a GPS unit by a partner organization. And then we put this data in through ESRI's ArcGIS online platform, and then created this dashboard. It's not as difficult as you may think, or as it may appear, right? So oftentimes community organizations, nonprofit organizations are able to use this type of thing with a little bit of support from, let's say, students or professors or whatever. But the main point here is that once that data was put in there, Shelby was able to create these sort of hotspot maps that take the raw data and then convert it into these density surfaces that show, the greatest concentration, right? So when you're looking at that map, you can see, oh, there is indeed a significant hotspot in particular locations, and this happens to be in a spot where there's a lot of camping that goes on in this spot here, right? So people could use that to take action or to take other forms of, let's say, management actions that are frequently used. All right, so let's move on to the second, or the next slide. Okay, so part two here, my other project. This is pretty similar. This was done with the New York State Natural Heritage Program and New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. The idea here is that we wanted to enable that. Basically, there is a web mapping tool that's for the public to use. It's an app that people can put on their phone, and it's called iMap Invasives. And people can go and collect data and put it up real time as they see fit. So that data, there's a real gap in Cortland County where our university is. And so to kind of fill in this gap, the partnering that we had done with New York Natural Heritage Program was to identify some of the plants that we would like to see, and how we can better inform people to identify them effectively. So the ones that we were talking about here are porcelain berry, for example, and this is often misidentified, right? So the web GIS application here was to link together to the iMap Invasives data set, but also to inform citizen scientists about recognizing the differences and how to report them. Next slide. And this might be a little bit hard to see, but we created 3 different interfaces, web maps that show 3 different species that we wanted to identify: hemlock, woolly adelgid, porcelain berry, and oriental bittersweet. And in addition to that, as part of this project, I had also worked with Connor, my undergraduate student, to train students in my GPS technology class about iMap Invasives, which is a formal training that's done through the New York Natural Heritage Program. And the idea is to have these outreach events and become a certified trainer, such that we could offer these similar types of trainings that we had in my class to community groups and anyone else that would be interested on into the future. And of course, SUNY Cortland's campus has several species of invasive plants, and we went and looked at them, right, and collected data with our mobile devices, either students' phones or a tablet, and we collected some of that data and did some of it in practice, right? So that's hopefully we'll have additional results on into the future. Hopefully people will start to use this, but that's sort of the beginnings of our collaboration with the New York Natural Heritage Program. So I'll stop there.